Hear that? Believe it or not, summer is just around the corner. Luckily, Armor All, America's most trusted auto appearance brand, has what your car needs to get that perfect summer shine. Plus, now through May 31st, we'll give you $5 for every $20 you spend on Armor All products. That means car wash pods, protectant, tire shine, you name it. Find out how to get your $5 rebate at armorall.com. Armor All, less work, more clean. Terms apply.
Today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup. This week, I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Molly Stentz. A grocery store plan for South Park Street needs another $1 million in city funding. Madison police launched their body-worn camera pilot program. Plus, it's tick season. And a local medical research institute wants you to send them any ticks you find to help create an inventory to fight tick-borne diseases. It's Friday, April 19th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. All right, welcome to the Friday News Roundup. This week in history, the Titanic sank in the North Atlantic. Abraham Lincoln was shot. The U.S. launched the Bay of Pigs invasion, and MLK Jr. wrote his letter from Birmingham jail. Nothing quite that dramatic in Madison this week, certainly maybe in the Middle East, but we've got newsworthy affairs in Madison, and we're going to talk about it. Joining me today to break down some local goings-on is our executive producer, Molly Stentz. How are you doing?
Hey. Dang, I don't know if I have any momentous world-changing news to talk about this week.
World-changing in a local sense. But let's get into it. Hey, Molly, you're kicking off the week with some rumbles and changes in our grocery store market.
Yeah, big news in big grocery land. Not something I get to say every day. Couple things happened this week. First, Metcalf's Market got sold, which was not a thing I ever thought would happen, right? Known for their local ownership. But I would say the bigger news is what's going on Park Street on the south side at the old Truman Olson Army site. So next door to the Pick and Save. Friends of the pod may remember when we talked to Christy Maurer last year, who is planning to open a grocery store next to Pick and Save on South Park Street. Well, spoiler alert, it ain't there yet.
Wow.
It was supposed to be there. It's not there yet. It didn't happen. It still might happen. And so that's the rub. There's some pretty interesting news out of Isthmus this week from Eric Murphy that apparently it's going to cost another $1 million. It's going to cost another $1 million to build that grocery store. And so the city council has a big decision to make, whether they want to throw in another $1 million to make this kind of dream happen. And why the city's interested in this is South Park Street is considered an area that has low food access. So, I feel like years ago, people used to talk about it as food deserts, but basically it's areas that don't have ready access to a big, large, full service grocery store. Either it's not easy to walk or there's a big old belt line in the way, that kind of thing. It would be basically you would need a car and you'd need to drive several miles to get to a grocery store. South Park has a ton of little grocery stores. There was Yuwa, the Kmart, the Korean grocery store on Park. There's a Latino grocery store on Park, Mercado Miramar. And there was definitely the farmer's market during this season.
I remember this big shakeup. Didn't this all start because Pick and Save was going to be going away?
Yeah. So the biggest kid on the block, the only kind of full service grocery store in the area was Pick and Save on South Park. And they were like, peace out, we're gone, Madison. So they had announced that they were going to leave, and people freaked out, right? Because, there's a lot of people. Where do you go if you live in South Park? You live in South Madison. Where are you going to go for groceries? Other than the smaller markets that we mentioned that are not, open all night. They have limited hours. They're smaller. They don't have as much stuff. So people were like, what the heck? And that was going to leave a big part of the city without a major grocery store, which seems like a fail. So the city of Madison stepped up and was like, we're going to fix this problem. They started working on this development, basically with a kind of a condo project that would have the grocery store on the first floor and then apartments above. Who wouldn't want to live next to a grocery store? Sounds cool to me. And we talked to Christy and she had all these like fabulous hopes and dreams for, like all the cool things she was going to build from scratch. But she basically discovered the project is going to take a lot more money because of the way that it happened. So the city had hired a previous developer to kind of build the site, right? Because they're like building it from scratch. And they were working with Luna's Groceries. But then Luna's Groceries decided they couldn't open that second store. And so the developer was basically still trying to build a grocery store. Like they still had to make decisions about everything that needed to happen for the construction project. But they didn't have an anchor tenant to work with. And so they kind of did the best they could / made it up. And it turns out they didn't do such a good job because Christy came in. Now she's like, yeah, I'll put a grocery store in this big development. But she's like, I need a loading dock. We need space to put big refrigerators and coolers. We need upgraded electrical service that's going to handle all of this equipment. And none of that was designed and planned for. And so she's like, kind of got roped into this thing that was not delivered as promised. So now she's like, we got to do these things that weren't done right in the first place. And it's going to be $1 million. Ruh-roh.
Yeah, it looks like, and I saw the picture of the space. So the building exists, but now there's just no grocery store in the space where the grocery store is supposed to be, right? And that some tenants have moved in. So there's already people living there. But yeah, with all of these issues, of course, you're not going to get started. So it will be curious and interesting what the city does if they do back this, because we've been hearing about it as a joint effort this whole time. And she's, wrangled into this and has lots of good and interesting plans. And no offense to Pick and Save, it was news to me that they're sticking around.
We don't know.
Oh, they might leave still? Okay, I thought I saw they're still here. So that's...
We don't know. They are still here longer than anybody ever thought, right? But then, like, Eric Murphy was like, you guys staying? And they were like,
Jeez, Louise.
So...
Because that's got to go into her business plan, too. Because she was talking about lots of innovative things that she was trying to bring in, like there's going to be a community space. And I would really, love that. And people really care about their grocery stores. So I'm curious how this will shake up. It sounds like she's cautiously optimistic and saying, let's do this. Like, are we still dating? Like,
yeah.
Are we still together? Are we still in this together?
They put all this time and energy and money into this project. So to like not finish the deal feels like a shame, but also $1 million in a budget that's going to be tight next year when we're looking at probably a tax hike in the city of Madison. Ooh, that's hard. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Votes in a few weeks. We'll see.
And I just have to think, what's the future of local for grocery stores in Madison? I saw a lot of outpouring for Metcalfe's. I'm not a West Sider, but I saw a beautiful ode because Metcalfe's is just sold to a Michigan company, which is sort of local. But Metcalfe's is one of these century-old institutions that really dedicated apparently a lot of resources to local foods and people coming up. I saw a quote about someone feeling a lot of sorrow that this is a real loss for the community and that the new owners say they're not going to change much, but there's no replacing the local focus Metcalfe's had. And also they noted that the West Side has lost Kanoki's old butcher shop. That was another 80-year-old institution apparently. And, these sorts of places where people have been going for generations and they care about that they're local, that kind of stand out from the Whole Foods or things that are just much more corporate. So I appreciate what Christy is doing with the one on South Park Street. And I hope it comes to life. Before we dive into more news, let's take a quick break. Attorney Z. Usman with Usman Law in Madison has helped thousands of folks fight back against abusive debt collectors. And he wants to help you too. The average interest rate on credit cards today is 25%. So, for example, if you charge $10,000, you're really going to owe a lot more than that in the end. If you only make minimum payments each month, you're going to be paying that off for longer than you realize. You'll end up paying more in interest than you borrowed to begin with. And nobody's got time for that. But there's help. Attorney Usman can help you figure out how long it'll take to pay off your debts. Then he can help you find ways to pay them off sooner and for less. To learn the easiest way to pay things off, visit madtownlawyer.com to schedule a free call with Attorney Usman, the finance fixer.
This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Your work can take you all over the place, like Texas. You've never been, but it's going to be great because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. Their free Bright Side breakfast will give you energy for the day ahead. And after, you can unwind using their free high-speed Wi-Fi. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine. Book your stay today at lq.com.
In totally other news, the Madison Police Department has launched its body-worn camera pilot program this week on Monday. So that's a 90-day pilot, and that will end on July 14th. So as a reminder, we've talked about this on the show. Common Council voted to give a final approval for this pilot last summer, and it's been long in discussion. Should Madison police have body cams? Should they wear body cams? The technology, is really widely used across the U.S. and even in Wisconsin. In 2020, I saw this from City of Madison press release. More than 60% of Wisconsin law enforcement agencies responded to a State Department of Justice survey reporting that their officers used body-worn cameras. So we're kind of an outlier in a sense. And Sean Barnes, our chief of police, has been a big advocate for this and seeing this across the finish line, or to this point, to get a pilot. Let's at least try it out, right? We should know officers in Madison, there are some that are already equipped, specifically officers who are part of the SWAT team and also on motorcycles, but it's not department-wide. So yeah, it's happening. It's already begun. Apparently over the past few weeks, the technology is being taught to officers how the cameras work, and also professional staff were taught on how to access video storage and handle public requests for video, which is certainly going to be a part of this whole conversation. They're using Panasonic cameras, which are what they've been using. So on the motorcycles and SWAT team, this is, it's a step.
Yeah. Interesting to see what happens in July. Will they, a couple months into it, just be like, all right, let's just keep going. Let's just keep this rolling.
Pilot my butt.
Are they going to pause it and study it and look back? Or is it just going to kind of slide on in? I don't know. It's interesting. Because like you said, it's kind of a thing most police departments have, and people here have raised concerns about privacy and other things.
Yeah, and also apparently they will be having an independent researcher who's going along and kind of charting how the pilot is going and if they're meeting their metrics. There's a whole plan that they developed in tandem with some experts, across the country. Chief Barnes himself has been in and around the thinking around body cams for a long time. In fact, he was a part of a body cam pilot a decade ago, which he was in Greensboro, North Carolina back in 2012. It's actually the first police agency recognized nationally for starting a police cam program. And so he's of the mindset, and has been, that this is a really critical tool for accountability. When we talked to him, we learned a lot about his thinking, and the big push for this is calling for accountability for how officers treat people in their work. And like you said, this has been controversial because people are fearful of how they'll be used. Will they be used effectively? But also, how will the data be used? Will it be used to help people in the community, or will this just be another tool of surveillance and something that could possibly hurt the immigrant community, And we did discuss that in our conversation. We'll be sure to throw our conversation with Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes in our show notes if you want to go back and listen. They said that they will not be using any of that data and turning it over to immigration agencies. They've never done that, and they're not going to start now. They also said that the cams are not going to be used for facial recognition because there's a city ordinance against that. So those were a couple of beats. But of course, there's been skepticism, and that's something that I think the pilot, the intention is that the pilot would be able to give some data about what it's being used for and how useful it is.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are they going to hire somebody to process this video so that they can actually turn it over in a timely fashion.
Right. When we talked to him last spring, which, is just about a year ago, because they're on time, he said that he was hiring a director. It sounds like they were having at least 2 positions related to the processing. I remember we asked something about that, but that's still a lot of data, a lot of video for 2 people. I mean, we know what it
Well, how do you hire somebody for a pilot,
Right. That's true. I mean, I think we're both thinking this is going to happen. It's on the way. Once you get the pilot, they're setting the infrastructure in motion. Lots of people have very strong opinions on this. And if this is indeed, as Sean Barnes is saying, a model that can have an adaptive fix to build community trust, like that's something that we'll find out, and we've talked about how easy it is just to cover up the camera, whatever. There's lots of considerations with this.
I could see defense attorneys being happy about it, right? Because then this is another data point for them, assuming they can get it in a timely fashion, which feels like always the rub because, sometimes when there's an ongoing investigation, they don't want to reveal data that pertains until they close it. But of course, that's when public interest is highest, right? When something just happened and people want to know the facts and want to know the details. And it's like, oh, we can't release that yet. And it's like, oh.
Well, I will say, Sean Barnes said this tool will be holding police accountable, but also civilians. And that when civilians make a claim, that they're going to have tape and they can go back and check. He used an example of if someone pulls out, says, hey, the police officer took my identification card. And then they're like, well, actually, no, I have this video of us turning it back. So he said that will save a lot of time and save money for the community. So
as long as it's there when you need it, and it doesn't, we don't have technical glitches on the tapes you really need.
Right. So that investigator, the person that's going to be researching the effectiveness really needs to be looking into the technology, into, how this is working, how quickly police are able to, turn on their cameras and being, just being present for all of that is going to be really important. Speaking about something in the community that could use some closer surveillance from folks, it's tick season.
Oh.
Watch out.
That sigh. Happy tick season to all who celebrate. You might think, is that too soon? Well, no, because I literally found one on me last week.
Oh no. I hate to hear that.
No, and you know me, I love insects. I love being outside.
Yeah.
But I do not love these little blood suckers. They've always freaked me out. I don't want to get Lyme disease. I know too many people that are dealing with that for life, right? But we've had the warmest winter on record in the state of Wisconsin this year. And so, you know who that's good for? That's good for the ticks. But check this out. The Marshfield Clinic is collecting them for science. They're doing an inventory of ticks across the state of Wisconsin, and they're trying to understand basically like the spread of new and invasive ticks throughout the state. So they want to know if these ticks are carrying the pathogens that cause Lyme disease or anaplasmosis. Here's what they're asking of all of us. Mail them your ticks. They literally want all of us in the state of Wisconsin to collect these little blood-sucking insects and mail them to the Marshfield Clinic for science.
That's new. It's probably maybe not new, but that's new to me.
I'd do it. Would you do it?
I absolutely would do it. And I have a very weird story about a close friend of mine who went to Mexico and got bit by a tick that was living in their suitcase that traveled with them. So those guys, yeah, they can travel.
Oh, no, don't spread the ticks. No.
Well, I mean, how could he was horrified. Yeah. Horrified. Like, what on God's earth? Why? And it was like an old dying tick, but it was holding on.
That's like my nightmare. Like Hitchcock, forget ants, forget birds. He should have done ticks. Come on.
Oh, well, birds, they're my favorite, and I fear them. So I don't know. But it is scary to think it really was a warm winter. And so it's going to be more intense for ticks. We're also going to hear cicadas this summer louder than ever. We're going to have to talk about that another time. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's kind of fun.
Yes, that's a positive. My brain had to balance it out. There's a lot of blood sucking.
So we will drop the deets to the tick study in Marshfield Clinic in the episode description. Basically, like, they have these little collection kits that they want you to put them in and mail them in to the Marshfield Clinic. So they have one at Rib Mountain State Park right now, but otherwise you can call them or email them, and then they'll send you a little like tick collection kit. Maybe it's a Ziploc bag. I'm not sure, but I'm going to be ordering one or 12 just to have on hand. And the cool thing too, they say, is like, after you send in your tick, apparently you'll be able to like look them up on the website, like the species that you contributed.
I love it. Citizen science. Let's go.
You can be like, there's my tick, little devil. So, and hopefully, it contributes to a better understanding of how these diseases are spread, because as we know, Lyme disease is debilitating for people, and it's really, really underdiagnosed. A lot of people struggle to get, if you don't get that classic bullseye rash, you can be misdiagnosed. There could be any number of other things that are going on, and there's no cure. So
yeah,
it's important to try to get ahead of it and help people understand the risk and try to figure out ways to live in harmony with these little bloodsuckers.
Harmony sounds nice. Yeah. All right. And so we'll be putting those deets in the description. So you can check out our show notes where you can send in your ticks, get your kit. Tick, tick, boom. We're out of time, my friend. We are out of time. Thank you so much for rounding up the news with me this week, Molly. It was lovely and terrifying.
Anytime.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Phil Circus, Dylan Brogan, and AK Al Moment. Molly Stentz is our executive producer. Our theme music's by Carl Christensen. Haley Sperling is our newsletter editor. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who really ticks you off? See you back here Monday morning with more stories from around the city. Ciao.